Welcome back to another episode of the Safe and Effective Podcast. I'm your host, Right Wing Rico, and we are going to talk about Fauci for a little while. There's actually, I just found this episode, Patrick, on Valuetainment. I actually really enjoy watching it. This is a PBD right here, and he actually has on Glenn Beck, who I deeply respect. I think the guy is amazing. But the subject is Fauci and his eventual, and basically the possibility of him going to prison. I've been saying Fauci should go to jail since the beginning. And we're going to take a trip down memory lane and I'll show you. Well, again, I'm still trying to set up this whole situation where the video doesn't sound too loud or too low on my mic. I'm going to figure it out over the next few days. Remember, I'm kind of new, so give me a little grace. But let me just go ahead and let's start the video off.
The letter says, although former President Biden attempted to shield potential bad actors like Dr. Anthony Fauci from accountability via preemptive pardon, we are confident that state laws may provide a means to hold actors accountable for their misconduct. They requested that Congress share any findings of violations of state laws so they can evaluate state-level courses of action. The AGs accused Fauci of suppressing discussions about the lab leak theory and misleading the public on COVID vaccine risk, which they say contributed to an erosion of trust in health institutions. They wrote, Dr. Fauci led a deliberate campaign to stifle the voices of premier health scholars regarding the lack of adequate testing of vaccines, which kept the public from knowing about risks like myocarditis and pericarditis among young adult males, the verified increased risk of blood clots in women, and the long-term effects vaccines had on fertility. Glenn, will anything happen to Fauci? Yes.
Please. And I did not believe this. I mean, a year into it, I did a two-night special on just the stuff that we could find in public spaces that showed the smoking guns everywhere. Now we have the actual data. Now we have a preponderance of evidence, and he's backdated it to 2014 for very specific reasons. This guy has been breaking the law and becoming his own god, and he has to go to jail. And I never thought he would, but under Trump, it's not going to be vengeance. It's not going to be, repaying his enemies. They are looking for the truth. Between Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Bhattacharya, they're going to unravel this thing, and he's going to jail. And it will be because of the states. They have a right and a duty to do it.
Vinny,
I'm glad. I have a list of the top 3 people that I just despise. As hard as this, being a Christian and trying to pray, and I actually have to pray for these people. That's the hardest thing I think about being a Christian. Yeah. I have to pray that they get their souls intact, because at one point they're going to be judged. But he's at the top, and Alejandro Mayorkas have always been at the top, and Pat knows this. He pushed these lies, and I saw a meme. Imagine getting medical advice from a doctor that needs a pardon for the medical advice that he gave you.
Yes.
That's why all these freaking Democrats, all these people, do you remember, Glenn? They would put those pictures of him in front of their lawns. Like they would worship this demon.
He was the golden calf.
Fauci is worse than that. I don't know what it was, but I remember 2020 like it was yesterday. I remember watching, I believe it was The View, and Jada Pinkett Smith was on there saying that she found Fauci to be sexy. An 80-year-old dwarf who allegedly is related to Mother Teresa in some strange happenstance of situations, who is also a maniacal maniac. None of this stuff that they're discovering 5 years later, this is 2025 now. These are all things that anybody with, I don't know, an IQ over 83 could have figured out in the first 2 months. For one thing, they propped him up as a god. I don't know if you guys remember, but they took him on a media circuit. He was on every talk show, every daytime show. Everybody was talking about him. I think they called him the sexiest man. He was a heartthrob. This guy right here, this guy, Fauci. I was saying arrest Fauci. This is July 29th of 2020. My post about Fauci is how I lost my original Facebook page. Fauci will be held accountable for COVID-19 origins despite his resignation. This is from 2022, and I shared this. This is my Facebook page. I was saying arrest Fauci. Look, this is 2021. This is when he was grilled by Rand Paul.
You do not know what you are talking about, quite frankly. And I want to say that officially. You do not know what you are talking about. Okay, you get one person. It's for the NIH gain of function. This is your definition that you guys wrote. Dr. Fauci, as you are aware, it is a crime to lie to Congress. Section 1001 of
July 21st, 2021, and I made I made an arrest Fauci post. Now, this was my backup page. I had made an arrest Fauci post, arrest Fauci and arrest Bill Gates. I had made those posts starting in April of 2020. And then this is what I wrote in 2021. This is my first time reading this, probably since back then. I've always been ahead of you, not far, but far enough to see see things that you could not see, that you cannot before it's too late. Nothing has changed. I told you all from the jump that what was going to happen. Lockstep, and it is not funny anymore now, is it? But you invested your life on Fauci and Bill Gates for free. Remember my arrest Fauci post from last year? Yeah, you do. Now look, if you took his injection, start being an adult and prepare. Don't leave your family stuck with your ignorant, selfish decisions. I made this post for my friends and family because in 2021 is when they did the rollout. I remember being in Los Angeles, and I'm telling everybody around me for the whole 2020 that they're going to try to come out with this injection. They're going to want everybody to take it. Don't do it. I had talked to all my friends ad nauseum, all of 2020. We all agreed nobody's taking it. I go to Arizona to go check on some stuff. I'm gone for a month and a half. I come back to LA. Everybody I know, it seemed like they were just like in a trance. I was asking them, like, well, what do you mean you don't remember taking it? They're like, I don't know. I just blacked out and I drove and I sat in my car and rolled the window down. And I'm like, what? You did what? And then that's when it started. I watched so many people disappear in LA. My friends up and down California, just all of a sudden, they're just dropping like flies. That's where a lot of my research and my data came from, just keeping track of who was dying, when they got their injections, and just looking for patterns, looking for a correlation. Fauci was taking top-down orders from the likes of the World Economic Forum via the World Health Organization under the guidance of Klaus Schwab and Noel Harari. He actually I believe he participated or was in contact when they did something called Event 201 back in 2019. They knew this was going to happen. They knew this was something that did not go from a pangolin, sticking his tongue in the ear of a mongoose or whatever BS story they were telling you. And I'm going to be honest with you. Neither do I subscribe to the lab leak theory. I think that's nonsense as well, because it just seems too much like a Netflix topic, a Netflix script. My suggestion is one that makes way more sense, is that these were invented years and years ago, and they just pretended that they were invented under Trump with warp speed, but they were not, because they had these batches ready for rollout when they had the swine flu outbreak in the UK back in 2010. You guys don't understand how big the number 1 billion is. Do you know how long it would take to manufacture and develop and package 1 billion vials of a vax, let alone 5 billion? Even if you have factories in different parts of the world that were literally brewing this concoction, and we don't know the ingredients, the inserts on the box it came in were blank. We don't know anything. With factories worldwide, it would take years to make that many. And magically, they had enough for the whole, they had 8 billion doses ready, 6 billion doses in like 3 months, which is insane because the math doesn't add up. Fauci knew what he was doing because if you remember the AIDS scare of the 80s, apparently, I remember Fauci, if memory serves me correct, Fauci was the one who called AIDS the gay man's disease. Let's see here. I believe it was him. Let's see here. Yeah. Anthony Fauci on the National Gay Man's Day in October. This was published October 2nd, 2009. Last Sunday, September 27th, Dr. Anthony Fauci, director of the NIAH, released a statement to acknowledge the National Gay Men's HIV Awareness Day and research impacting gay men, yada, yada, yada. No. This is what I'm looking for in 1980s. Let's see here. In 1981, Fauci read a CDC report about 5 young gay men in Los Angeles who had died from pneumonia. Fauci initially thought it was a fluke. In 1983, the HIV virus was identified and a screening test was developed. Fauci was criticized by some all them acronyms, activists for slow and non-inclusive research. Fauci is credited with increasing access to experimental treatments for HIV and AIDS. He amended the way the government conducted clinical drug trials. The NIH research led to the development of antiviral therapy, ART, which improved. No, it didn't. In the early 1980s, AIDS cut short the lifespans of a lot of people. This is Fauci was also criticized heavily by the gay community, but one of his statements where people called him a murderer is because he made millions off of selling retrovirus drugs, which eventually they found out did extreme damage to people who took them as a form of treatment. So they attribute, a lot of people attributed a lot of the people that passed away from the treatment more so than the disease. The initial man who discovered HIV in France, let's see here, who isolated the AIDS virus in France. Forgot his name. French scientists Luc Montagnier and Francois Barry Sennelicy isolated the human immunodeficiency HIV in the early 80s. One time, that was it. And they never were able to reproduce what they said they isolated. It wasn't sent around the world to verify. They just said this is what it is. And basically any issues with one's immune system were just put under the umbrella. It's like they were like putting it under an umbrella where everything was HIV or AIDS. To this day, no one can really explain the difference between the two. They try to pass it off as in AIDS is a more advanced version of HIV. However, the same playbook that they ran with the HIV AIDS situation, they repeated it with the whole COVID situation, where it's you don't know you have something until they test you for it. I'll say it again. You don't really know you have something until they test you for it, and then they convince you that they have the proper treatment for it. Fauci is going to go to prison because Trump is the president now, and he has to make up for it. Right now, Dr. Well, I don't call him doctor, just Fauci. He is the Joseph Mengele of our time. Joseph Mengele was a Nazi German scientist who did experiments on Jewish patrons in the camps. One camp in particular was Auschwitz, and he was nicknamed the Angel of Death. He performed deadly experiments on prisoners at Auschwitz and in their camps. I don't know if you guys remember this, but they were experimenting with the 2021-2020 safe and effective thing that everybody should love because vaccines are great. They initially experimented on them in prisons here in the United States. If you look at Fauci's history, they also experimented with for AIDS drugs with orphans from orphanages here in the United States. People thought that the worst thing that Fauci could have done was all those horrible tests that he did on beagles, but they don't talk about how they tested different types of drugs on a lot of Black kids who are orphans that lived in these orphanages. They would recruit them for experimentation. Let's see here if I can find out. Let me see if I can bring that up. Let's see here. Fauci experimented on orphans. Yeah. Let's see here. Articles misrepresent. Let's see here. NIH tested AIDS drugs on foster children. That's the organization Fauci runs. Not making this up. Interview with Dr. Fauci on the Mississippi Baby. Government tested AIDS drugs on foster kids. There's so much people don't know that I know because I literally am a specialist in this field. I've obsessed about it. This was, I've lost relatives to this who are no longer with us. Healthy, great people, but they were Democrats and they listened to the television. My family divided up after 2020. The conservatives went one way, the Democrats went another. The Democrats did whatever the television told them, and they have suffered for it. Many of them have already paid the ultimate price. We chalk the rest of them up as being on the way. We kind of stopped speaking to each other because it's really hard to talk to somebody that you feel is on the edge or suicidal. There's no way you can convince me that you're going to join a medical experiment, but you also love your life. You don't trust God. You trust man to give you inject like that. That's insane to me. How do we find common ground? Because we share relation through marriage or through blood. I'm supposed to ignore your transgression because think about it. To go along with this, you had to go along with a whole lot of other things. When the news was thinking of when people were pondering forcing people or arresting people, and when I'm in LA and they were telling people you had to have a passport to come into a store or to a restaurant, and those relatives that everybody wants me to have grace for did not speak out against someone trying to demand that I show them my papers to enter to make sure I wasn't infected. Didn't they say that? What they say about the Jews? They said they had was it typhus? Tetanus, typhus? and they had to wear a badge to show that they potentially were sick, but they've had these injections. And it's crazy. Mengele, Dr. Joseph Mengele, where is that article at? They developed a lot of these treatments, and it was just experiments. Now, don't get me wrong. A lot of that data was used to develop treatments for all types of diseases and stuff going forward. Even the Nazis literally created, we didn't have a rocket program in the United States. There was no NASA. We didn't even have we had a B-2 program. It wasn't until we brought the scientists from Nazi Germany over here in Operation Paperclip did we start to advance. Yeah, a lot of our modern technology comes from the experiments and the atrocities of this era, but that's still no excuse, because I don't think anything good is going to come from what Fauci did, unless it's in the form of how many people are going to inhabit the earth that in next year than the year before. Which, if you're according to Bill Gates and the World Economic Forum, that in the World Health Organization, that was the goal the entire time, to reduce the population. And to this day, Fauci is so protected. Trump just barely removed his security detail. Fauci has to pay for his own. But Fauci failed. He was supposed to, Fauci failed, Biden failed. This many people were not supposed to still be here. And you can just tell that they had bigger plans. Excuse me, things did not go according to plan, because Bill Gates jumped the gun when he took all of this research from Epstein. People don't understand the relationship there. They were working together, but Bill Gates is not going to play second fiddle to anyone. He stole the research from Epstein. This is what Epstein was researching. People always want to bring up to me, Rico, what about all those politicians on Epstein Island? I said, to hell with the politicians. I know why they were there. What about the scientists? They would bring certain kids for sexual exploitation, but the kids they brought from the Caribbean and from Haiti were for experimentation. Black kids, because they're targeting the blacks in the United States. So they need to experiment on them because they're trying to isolate how to make certain types of bioweapons that only attack certain people. That's why they're now in West Africa, in Gavi, and they're just trying to develop and trying to find a way to make that happen. That's just, they have access to the same internet we do. They see which people they think are the problem causing all the issues, except they have the money and the resources to actually try to do something about it. And they are. They're working on something. And if you turn on your television and you look at who you see just dropping everywhere, well, it's one community that's taken a really big hit that nobody's talking about. I talk about it all the time, but people act like they don't see what I see. I literally keep track of certain people. And there's one community, the BLM community, that's literally being decimated by this. But the non-BLM community, for some reason, that's also being decimated is in the Gold Coast of Australia and the entire the UK. I mean, they're just being, oh my God, it's just so many complications. Why they wanted those two groups to be reduced, I don't know. But in the United States, it's definitely the BLM community that's taking the blunt of the hit. But a lot of this comes back to why Fauci is going to have to go to jail. There's, again, when people make the comparison between Mengele and Fauci, people always say, if I was alive back then, I would have did this, I would have done that. Now they have their chance. He is the Mengele of our generation. There's no way he's going to make it out of this unscathed. Who cares how old he is? He still has to be perp walked and a spectacle made out of him. The man was given a pardon for what? He didn't do anything, right? All vaccines are safe and effective. I take 6 of them every morning. I love it. I put it on my cereal. I love the ingredients. Those are great. But as far as Fauci and what he did, as far as the lab leak lies and the cover-up, lying to Congress, they're going to have to make a example out of him. If you let Fauci just die of natural causes or just live out the rest of his life in peace, then how can you ever say that you're tough on terrorists? This man announced in the year 2017, 3 years before the lockdowns, that the Trump administration would run into a surprise outbreak. Matter of fact, let's see here. I'll play the video for you. Fauci, surprise outbreak, Trump. Let's see. Was it right here? Let's go ahead and play it.
With you today, based on my experience, and you'll see that in a moment, is that there is no question that there will be a challenge, the coming administration, in the arena of infectious diseases, both chronic infectious diseases.
And by the way, this is the man that everybody was saying they want to. This is the same guy everybody wanted to hump and touch and was pretending that they were just falling out over. He is just the sexiest thing alive. That's how disgusting. That's why no one trusts mainstream television anymore, mainstream media. People come to journalists or people like myself who talk on the internet about different topics. No one trusts the television no more. Because remember, it was the television that was telling you that this was the sexiest man alive in 2020. Your TV. No one trusts the television anymore. You can't. Well, look what he says.
We have certainly a large burden of that, but also there will be a surprise outbreak. The history of
how in
his
the
body
hell?
would be found 13.
Let me go back.
Of the last 32 years that I've been the director of NIAID will tell the next break. But also there will be a surprise outbreak.
How the hell would you know something that was a surprise? Matter of fact, let me share that. Fauci surprise outbreak video. Let me see here. Let's see here. What we got to share that video. Yeah, let's share it. I've never heard. The only time I've heard of a surprise that I knew was coming was when I planned it myself. You know, if I'm throwing a surprise party for my friend, if I'm planning the surprise party, then I know that there's going to be a surprise. So it's a surprise for you. It's not a surprise for me because I'm one of the people planning it. I'm glad I'm making this post right now. A beautiful post. Beautiful. So he knew there was going to be something that's going to happen under Trump. He planned it. That video right there should be enough to get him convicted. Because under oath and under a cross-examination, he's going to have to explain what this meant. They need to build a special prison for him. And I'll be honest, dying in jail is not good enough in my opinion. You guys don't understand. When I talk about how many people are gone, I mean, that's just to date. What about the ones tomorrow, next week, next month? And we haven't even hit the bigger, it's only been, we're coming up on 44 months. That's not that long. And how many people have we lost because of Fauci and his lies? See, he was the American liaison for the World Health Organization. He worked with these people, these eugenicists, his whole life, his whole professional career. He's been working with Bill Gates, the World Health Organization, and he's taking top-down orders from Schwab and Noel Harari. This man is the worst bioterrorist in the history of humanity, where he makes Mengele seems like a mere pickpocket thief on the subway. You damn straight Fauci has to go to prison. Think about it. These are threats against my country, my home. A surprise outbreak that you know about, but we don't, and no one thought to ask him, well, how do you know about a surprise? Unbelievable. They must bury Fauci. He must go under the jail. These are old videos. Yeah, remember me back in 2020 when I said arrest Bill Gates. This is an arrest Fauci. Bill Gates ordered to stand trial in the Netherlands in November over this injury claims, ordered to pay legal costs, and as a Dutch court dismisses jurisdiction claim. The same thing's also happening to him in Kenya. So this is a few months ago. He's going through this in Kenya as well. Many of us won't rest until Fauci is behind bars. And this is what Zuckerberg was blocking us from sharing once upon a time as well. But now I guess it's okay that we can talk about these things because, well, I guess Zuckerberg is no longer a gay robot. He's a normal guy. He wears a chain. He wants to fight. And he likes Trump magically all of a sudden. But when am I going to get my damn page back that you took away for sharing things that were true? I shared this. Okay, so the video I just shared that I love, July 30th, 2020. Since when can niggas predict surprises? Nah, he was one of that made this a reality. Arrest Bill Gates, arrest Fauci, but that's me going easy on him. Damn, I said that's one thing about me. I'm consistent. My conversation is uniform. I'm going to say the same thing 5 years from now, 5 minutes from now, 5 days from now. Is going to stay solid. And look at this. Look at this. You guys know who this is? That's Dr. Joseph Ladapo, and this is July 29, 2020. Dr. Joseph Ladapo is the Surgeon General of the Surgeon General, I believe, or the health director of the state of Florida right now. And he's the reason why DeSantis got behind banning these in Florida. But people don't know this. He was a UCLA doctor first, and he was actually one of the frontline doctors of America. I was heavily censored for sharing videos because it was Simone Gold. There was another woman from West Africa that was treating patients, and Dr. Joseph Ladapo. And they went and they gave these speeches, and people ignored them and were begging for injections. People were like, we don't want to hear what you got to say. Give us drugs. Or did the public really not want the drugs, but USAID propped up fake sentiment to pretend that was the public demanding injections? Maybe USAID was behind creating the fake demand so that people would think they were, because a lot of people are followers, a lot of people are sheeple. So they were thinking that they were following the trend, but really, now that we know that USAID is just funding a lot of the fake protests and stuff around the world and here in America, the fake demand for the coof. Let's listen to what Joseph Ladapo has to say about all this.
Sure thing. I'm Dr. Joe Ladapo. I'm a physician at UCLA, and I'm a clinical researcher also. And I'm speaking for myself, not on behalf of UCLA. So I want to say that, so I'm thinking of the people who are behind the screens that are watching what you guys are broadcasting. I want to share with you, because there's so much controversy and the atmosphere is so full of conflict right now, that what this group of doctors is trying to do fundamentally is really to bring more light to this conversation about how we manage COVID-19 and the huge challenge.
This is YouTube. So I'm going to share this video on Facebook. I'm going to share it on Rumble. I love this video. I'm going to repost it on also on X. This is one of those amazing forgotten videos that is a gem. You know, this is a very important video for humanity. There were people who knew something was going on and they tried their damnness to warn everybody. And too many people did not listen. So I'm sharing all this on my X page, Safe and Effective Podcast, Club Rico Podcast, you know. And I want you to watch this video. Joseph Ladapo literally was begging. This is 8 months before they were administering these. And you know what I'm talking about being administered. This is in July of 2020. This is before. This is back before when everybody was pure blood and still alive. Everybody was pure. And they knew what was coming, and they begged people, please think about it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Why didn't you listen? What are my comments back then saying? Look at, and I'm sharing other videos, and this was a banned video right here. People are asking, how do I download and share? Downloader app on Facebook, Roxanne, Shauna. Yeah, these are people. Fauci, we have to get away. Kerry Lake was on his helmet too. We have to get away from the blame game. We're not seeking the blame. We're seeking justice. Fauci should be in jail for what he did to us for life. This has already been the sentiment for years. He should have already been in jail, but he was protected by the former administration who tried to give him a pardon. Just because you have a federal pardon from the president does not mean you cannot still be charged by the states or brought up to have to testify in front of Congress. They're going to find a way. But he's already an old man. They have to hurry up. They have to. And look at this. Eco Health Alliance, UC Davis, California, Warp Speed, and Trump. Wow. Aaron Rodgers. Remember when Aaron Rodgers was taking a dump on Fauci too, as he should? This is crazy. So much has happened in these past 4 years. This is insane. And we're just literally pretending like, you know, our memory is just so much happening right now. It's like we memory hold so much. Fauci has to go to prison or worse. Or worse. This is. Oh yeah, this is me. This is before I left California. This is me driving on the 5 freeway. And this is right here. Let's go back. I seen this sign off the freeway. This word can cause something in death. And this is right off the freeway. People are waking up. Dale Bigtree, the fight is on. Yeah, this is when they were fighting that case before they won. The most murderous person in history arrests Fauci for crimes against humanity. Absolutely. Imagine taking medical advice from a man who needs a pardon for the medical advice he gave. We've lost everybody. I'll be honest with you. In my opinion, I've written off everybody that took it. I mean, I try not to talk to people who did because I don't want to feel when they, you know, somebody contacts me and says, hey, this and this happened. It's going to be difficult for me to say, oh yeah, I didn't. Well, that's terrible. That's so random. You know, it's hard for me to be fake. I've broken up with women who went and took it because I was like, we can't even have sex anymore. Because I just noticed there was too much correlation between dating websites for certain people, hookup websites where they were promoting this in their profile pictures, but they weren't promoting it on Christian Mingle. or any of these other, or the other, there was just only, it was just like, there were so many patterns. There were so many telltale signs that something was wrong. There were telltale signs that let me know that there was something happening and I had to get away from it. And look, this is me posting. This is years ago. Putin even demands that Fauci gets extradited for part of it, and that was for crimes against humanity. July 31st, 2020. Arrest Fauci. We put this together a year. Look at it, July 18th. Arrest Fauci of 2020. I posted this. Infectious disease expert Dr. Anthony Fauci trying to explain why everybody needs to wear a mask after saying there's no reason to be walking around in a mask, and that masks do not provide any level of protection that people think they do, in an interview with 60 Minutes in 2020. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And it's like we've just memory hold so much because there's just so much we're bombarded with every single day. Let me see here. Let me just share this picture, bro. I have so many Fauci memes and posts. I have so many that it's insane. I've said it. And now the Philippines also wants him as well. Yeah, this guy also, he's no longer with us. Bodybuilder. Actually, no, this isn't the bodybuilder. This is the Canadian activist.
It's about increasing government control over our lives by using fear tactics to make people comply with giving up the rights and freedoms.
It made a lot of sense. And he was one of the few Canadians actually speaking out. I had left LA and went to Arizona to get away from the lockdown. And then all of a sudden, they started doing it in Arizona too. So I had to leave Arizona. It's like I went on a run. I had moved between like 5 different states until I found out that Texas didn't have any mandates and was not playing this game. And then that's when I had to relocate and find a new home. And that's how I got here. I want people to remember all of this. I want everybody to remember. I guess I was ahead of my time. Share this picture, save it. It's just crazy that years later, we all knew this was coming. I don't think anybody thought that any of this stuff was real. We all figured if Trump wins, then we can finally get justice and see this man, just held accountable. But we like I said, the clock is ticking. We have to arrest Fauci. He's the Joseph Mengele of our generation. Actually, he's worse. He's much worse. Do me a favor, like and subscribe, share the video. If you hate Fauci, like the page. If you hate Fauci, share the page, share the video. Give me a follow on YouTube. Hopefully this video doesn't get flagged or taken down. Remember, all vaccines are safe and effective. I take 3 a day personally. So this was nothing negative about vaccines, YouTube. We're just talking about Fauci and the stuff he lied about when it came to Wuhan and the lab leaks. So yeah, follow me on Instagram, Rumble. We can get Rumble. We Rumble and X. We do talk about things that are not YouTube friendly. So if you can, just follow us on there as well. Not monetized, obviously. Have a couple of small sponsors, and we do ad reads we have one coming up after this for cosigning.com. If you need an apartment and don't have a cosigner, contact cosigning.com today. They'll match you with someone to help you get approved. Thank you, and we will be back in a few. Just going to go ahead and make a snack, and we'll come back with a couple of more stories for you. Thank you very much.
I've been needing to find a new apartment, which has not been easy with credit as bad as mine. Luckily, I found cosigning.com. They connected me with a cosigner who helped me get my dream apartment for me and my dog. I just paid a small fee and was able to move in fast. Get the cosigner you need for the apartment you want. Check out cosigning.com today.